You are vibrational beings and mostly don't know it, which makes the beginning of a conversation with someone like us annoying, because if you are physically based, and you certainly are, we see your clumps on those chairs, and as you are physically based and as you are therefore action based, we understand why the early discussions about vibration feel odd to you. But you can get up to speed with them quickly, and when you do, everything in your world will become easier, because you are a vibrational being living in a vibrational universe, and you are thinking thoughts which are vibrational, which equal the basis of the reality of your world that you are creating. You create your own reality, and you do it with your thoughts. So if you are like so many humans, where the majority of your thoughts are offered in response to what you are observing, and you're just letting whatever shows up in front of you be the reason that you're looking at it, then you're probably having a sort of contrasting experience where you're observing wanted and unwanted with no sense of control. We want you to leave this gathering today with a sense of control, because you are the focuser of your own experience. You can focus yourself into the reality that you want. We were watching Esther this morning. She had a good night's sleep, and she was eager about coming down, and she was making a list of all of the reasons why she likes to do this. How fun it is to get on the airplane and fly here where you are, to have an experience like this with you. And so as she's making her list, she's actually writing it. Several times as she thought of a statement to make, in the middle of the statement, she would say, I can say that better than that. I can say that better than that. Because she could feel that even as practiced as she has become at directing her thoughts, that sometimes she introduces resistance right into a statement without meaning to. For example, she would say something like, I really, really like doing these seminars. Well, there's no resistance in that statement at all. And then, this is going to be a really good seminar. Well, there's no resistance in that. And then, people that are coming with great expectation. No resistance in that. And whatever happens will be a really good thing. A little bit of resistance in that. Whatever happens. I can say it better, she said. Always good things happen. It's always a good seminar. Now, this is really fine-tuning, but you'll reach the point where you will want to say it better and say it better and say it better, because the better you say it, the better you offer a vibration that matches what you want to come back. So there are two ways of knowing how well you're saying it or how well you're thinking it. One is by the way it feels while you think it, because there's a measurement of what you're wanting and what you're doing vibrationally in every moment. We'll explain that briefly to you in just a moment. So how it feels when you say it is one way of knowing how well you're saying it, and what's showing up in your experience is another way of knowing. Because whatever is manifesting, all of the details of your experience, how you're interfacing with traffic, how you're interfacing with people around you, every experience without exception that you have all day, every day, is about how you've been saying it. Now, we want to stretch the word saying to mean something a little more than you mean by the word saying, so maybe we should use another word rather than trying to redefine all of your words. But when we say, we mean offer vibrationally. We mean the thought process. We mean what you expect is what we really mean. What you expect, what you've been thinking about, your patterns of thought. So the thought that you're thinking right now is all powerful. The thought that you're thinking right now is sort of going to be like the thoughts that you've been thinking, because there's momentum in the thoughts that you've been thinking. You see what we're getting at? Now, this thought that you're thinking right now is the all-powerful thought, because it equals your point of attraction. But you can't just all of a sudden, out of the blue, think a completely frisky, fresh, new thought if you've been thinking other thoughts. That's like yelling at your kids and in the middle of it reminding them how much you love them. It's not flying with them. In other words, you just can't change courses that quickly. And so what you're doing right now is a culmination of momentum. Esther had an experience with some longtime friends that culminated in something the other day that was not pleasing to her at all. And as she thought about it, she felt bad about the culmination of this experience because she cares about them, and it came to a sort of uncomfortable ending place. And as she thought about it, she beat up on herself for a little while about it. And then she thought, really, with the momentum the way it was, there was really no way for that experience to have unfolded far differently from the way it has been going along. There they are now. There's really no way for something to turn out differently than the way it has been practiced. And so when she thought back on it, she had to acknowledge that the majority of the thoughts that she's thought about this experience have been thoughts about how they really should have been doing something differently than they were doing it. She was just facing reality and not liking the reality that she was facing. And she realized she hadn't done focus wheels about it. She hadn't cleaned up her vibration about it. She had just been a sort of passive, no, that's not the right word, active observer. She had been not a chronic observer. This wasn't something she thought about a lot. But when she did think about it, she thought about it in that way. You could have handled that differently, she thought. You could be doing something differently, she thought. And so every time she thought you could have been doing something differently, she was adding to a sort of momentum that was going to play out unless she began somehow taking a different course. But because it wasn't very important to her, and so it wasn't something that she woke up thinking about, and it wasn't something that she spent any time trying to improve the way she thought about it, as it culminated exactly in the way the course that had been set caused it to culminate. In other words, she is the creator of her reality, even as it regards how other people interface with her. Don't you like knowing that you are too? She didn't really like knowing that. She wanted to say, you should have done that differently. If you had handled that differently, it would have turned out differently for you. Didn't even really negatively impact her at all. She just didn't like how it turned out for them. She didn't like how it turned out for them, and she knew it did not have to turn out that way for them if they had just thought differently than she was thinking about them, not thinking differently. You should be thinking differently about this thing that none of us have thought differently about. Now it's turned out, I'm really sure that you should have thought differently about this, because it could have turned out a whole lot better if you'd thought differently about it. And so what we want you to begin understanding is that there is a momentum in thought, and often you continue the momentum in the thought without meaning to, because the momentum in the thought, sometimes you say, it feels to me like my thoughts are thinking me. And we say, that's momentum. And momentum is caused by the powerful law of attraction, which says that which is likened to itself is drawn. So when you focus upon something for as little as 17 seconds, when you cross that 17-second mark, momentum ensues. And by the time you do that again, another 17 seconds, and again, another 17 seconds, and again, another 17 seconds, and you cross that 68-second mark, you have significant enough momentum going that there are going to be some evidences that present themselves to you. So you can imagine how expectations can get going. So how do you feel about the beliefs that you hold? How do you feel about the expectations that you hold? Esther said to us in the early days of our explaining this to her, but Abraham, it's true. It's true. This thing I believe, this thing I expect is true. And we said, we're not questioning that, but we have another question for you. Do you want it in your experience? Well, what's that got to do with anything? Everything. But it's true. We said, there are many things that are true that you want to experience, and there are many things that are true that you don't want to experience. We would suggest you keep the things you want to experience that are true active in your vibration, while you deactivate the things that are true that you don't want in your experience. Deactivate them. How do you do that? By withdrawing your attention from them. Okay, so I'm not going to think about that thing that I'm thinking about. How's that working out? I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to think about this, because when I think about this, it really bothers me, and I'm not going to think about this. It bothers me to think about this. I'm not going to think about this. I've been thinking about this for far too long. I'm not going to think about this anymore. I want you to stop doing that, you say to your children. I don't want to see that again. And your children know what to say. They want to say, then look the other way. If you don't want to see it, then don't ask me to stop doing it. Just look away. And that really is our message to you. You could learn it from your children. Just look away. Well, that feels odd in a reality-based society, doesn't it? Because most humans have been sorting the realities, the manifestations, into piles. These are good piles, and these are bad piles, and these are not so good piles. And we say, but then by the time it's manifested, that's not when we want you to try to apply your focus. It's hard not to notice things that are around you if you've got a vibration that's active within you. So yesterday, Esther was thinking, just a train of thought. She was thinking about a new album of current seminars that she's pulled together. It's called a seasonal album. And she was working on the album covers and enjoying the process of selecting the product for it. And so she was thinking about these wonderful edited versions of some seminars and how fun it was to put a really beautiful album cover on it. So she was just enjoying that thought. And then she thought about a friend of hers who is not tech savvy, who is not able to receive the live stream. She can't download MP3s. She wants CDs, and Esther was thinking how nice it is to have those CDs. And then she got thinking about that person and where that person now is and what that person is now doing and wondering how it's working out for her. And without even meaning to, Esther was down a sort of uncomfortable trail. So she thought, that was really tricky, because I started out thinking about one thing, ended up thinking about another thing, which led to another thing, which led to another thing, and now I'm in a place where I want to pull back from it, and there wasn't so much momentum going that she couldn't pull back from it, but she pondered, how'd I get there? And then she realized something that she's been listening to us say to you all emphatically, especially recently, that she wasn't following a trail of subject like it seemed. You know how you can do that? Do you ever play that game? Well, first I thought about that, and then I thought about that, and then I thought about that, and then I got here because first I was thinking that, and then I was thinking that, and then I was thinking that. Have you ever played that game back? Well, stop it. What she has been hearing us say, rather than choosing the thought because of the subject matter, choose the thought because of the way it feels. Choose it vibrationally. Get the ball rolling, momentum, by choosing the way you want to feel, which will lead you to the thought, which will then lead you to another thought, which will then lead you to another thought. And even though you might jump subject, 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 you won't jump vibration. Now, does that make sense to you? Have you been listening to us enough to know that there is a vibrational content that is the basis of your point of attraction? It's not subject, subject, subject. It's vibrational frequency, vibrational frequency, vibrational frequency. In other words, if you're on the Henri disc, we've been describing the emotion that you might be feeling in a moment as actually selecting a vibrational point of attraction. We are calling those your point of attraction, your grid, or called it so many different things you don't know what we're calling it. But it's the place where you stand. It's spinning because it's attractive. It's calling to it other things like it. So let's say that, like on the emotional scale, you could be on the fear disc, or you could be on the Henri disc, or you could be on the happy disc, you could be on the joy disc, the loving disc, the anger disc, the resentful disc, the fear disc. In other words, you can choose your point of attraction, and in fact you do, all day, every day. So every thought that's ever been thought still exists. You have the potential of activating anything right here, right now. And it doesn't take very much focus upon it in order to activate it with enough momentum that it begins to be a point of attraction for you, where things like it are going to start showing up. And you know what the first thing that shows up once you find yourself spinning on one of these discs? The first thing that happens is more thoughts like it join it. Momentum. And the next thing that happens, and right on the heels of it, is you have an emotional, we're going to call it an emotional manifestation.